Hey, family. Welcome to the Critical Sense Making Sessions facilitated by yours truly, Revolutionary Rika. Today's episode is episode 38. Today's topic is spiritual, physical, and emotional health tools for people of color. Today's guest is Aminah James. She is an East Coast native who is passionate about herbalism, expression through music and movement, and rehabilitation of the environment. Aminah, tell us a little bit more about who you are and choose one word to describe how you're showing up.
Hi, Rika. I want to thank you for inviting me here today. It's been a really wonderful opportunity to sit down and collect myself and see where I am in this journey. I am a multidisciplinary artist. I specialize in visual arts and I'm a DJ. And I work particularly with herbalism, mostly in the way that it shows up in our natural environment. So in California, that looked very different than when I'm here now in New York. Because I really would like people to be aware of what's already growing around them and what they have access to and how to actually be in connection with the earth that they stand on. And so I take my work very seriously because, our health is our wealth and we are what we eat. And one word to describe me today, a tree, since there are a lot of them around. So, yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you so much again for agreeing to be on. And I'm going to push us right into our first icebreaker question. And
Mhm.
so, my question for you is what flower represents you as a person and why?
Oh, that's so, you know, white peony. And I
Mm,
say white peony because I personally have started to become connected to why we as Black and Brown folk resonate with white clothes so much, and how that can bring clarity and calm and collectedness. And also because white peony has an affinity to the reproductive system of women. So that is something that I've learned is really helpful during menstruation, to keep the cramps low and to revitalize the body and to help kind of keep the body prepared through the cycle. So white peony root is kind of where I'm at. The flower is definitely how I'm feeling today.
that's awesome. That's beautiful. Beautiful too. I love the way that you connected that with just so much. So hopefully people will go and buy some white peonies, right?
you know, or even look it up, take your time, do your research. Yeah. Mhm.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to jump right into our first set of questions. And I would love for you to start by telling us a little bit about life growing up on the East Coast.
And well, I mean, to be really real with you, it was very interesting. It was both very vigorous and also very focused. I grew up in Jersey City, New Jersey, from the time up until I was 13. And it has taught me so much about the fact that we have access to so much out here, like readily available at our hands. And I am so thankful that there are so many Caribbean folk out here. That is one of the things that I've noticed is apparently different, between living in California. Like, I really miss having Dominican folk around because I'm half Dominican. I miss having my Caribbean folks around because there's a certain way of living that really is rooted in the earth, which is something that's always been instilled in me as a kid. Even though, like, there are certain things along the way that have kind of become altered or maybe disconnected in the eyes of some. I'm aware that being here has taught me how to stand up for myself when it comes to things like that. Because, though I have other people that do it for me, like, you are your own person in this world. And when you leave your house, you stand up for yourself because you're by yourself. So, but it's taught me a lot about cherishing the experiences that I've grown up with. I think I've had access to a lot of music and food and cultures and experiences and shows and artwork and countless things, honestly, that I don't think I would have gotten anywhere else. So I'm definitely thankful for that. Yeah.
So, that's a beautiful story. And so just, I would love for you to maybe dive a little bit deeper about how you were exposed to healthy tools like growing up.
For sure. It's interesting. One of the things that I think of first and foremost is this thing that my my grandmother used to make called sancochito, which is something that she brought with her here from Dominican Republic because my mother is first generation, and it's literally, from what I remember, it was raw garlic, raw onions, apple cider vinegar, and some honey. And she would just throw it all in a jar and she would keep it in the fridge. At any time my brother and I got sick, she would just feed us a spoonful. And it was the worst tasting thing I've ever had in my life. But it worked every single time, every single time. And I know as a kid it sucked so much because I just really didn't want to take it, but I knew I had to because I knew it worked. And I'm really thankful for those things because even though there's so many other tools that are a part of our lineage that she may have left behind or maybe not even like taught us per se, they were still a part of like our everyday life. And I think that's where it's most important because maybe, you know, I'm an advocate for really showing people and sharing with people the purpose as to why we do these things now. Because I know as a kid, I always thought, well, like, why do I have to? Like, I don't understand why you make me eat this really gross stuff. Like, I know it works, but this is horrible, you know? But I think that if I were to had my grandmother sit down with me and really explain to me, like, look, this is what my grandmother did for me. And this is, we used to grow these things on our land. And so this is why I do this now. And I know that it works. I
Mhm.
probably would have been a little less hesitant. But my family, particularly my parents, have always been really big on making sure that we had really good food. Like we're cookers in our family. We cook to the nines. Every Sunday we would eat together around the table. And it was definitely something that transformed the way that I thought about food because it was something that we put our love to and we like really gave care to. So it wasn't like, you know, I hardly ever had times where my family would go and buy things that they didn't want us eating per se. Like if we begged, and then maybe they would give it to us. But there was an era of them being a part of their own Caribbean cultures back home, and then seeing that the standards weren't necessarily the same here in the States, that made them kind of hold that standard for us. Um, yeah, and I'm really thankful that we, at this moment in my life, you know, parents are starting to see that like small seeds that they really grow to something different now. Because I think that even for them being mostly first generation, they were still acclimating to like what it means to be an American with an American diet and American access to certain health tools. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
So just to finish out this section, thinking back on your childhood, what did you know or learn about health tools from your educational experiences?
Well, I was very fortunate enough actually to be put through private school for most of my life. My parents worked really hard for them. I'm ever grateful. And I remember particularly around seventh and eighth grade, I actually began taking a civics class, which was something that totally changed my life. It was a Black woman teacher, and one of the only Black teachers I've ever had in my life. Her name was Miss Nabley, and she really took time to teach us, like, you know, and that wasn't something that I'd ever really experienced throughout my educational experience. But you know, like we had a particular project in which we had to choose a recipe and go out and buy the ingredients, spend the money to get the ingredients, bring it home, make dinner for our families, and share the experience of the rest. And that experience, that understand the value of food and in order to feed the family. And then also what it is that I'm buying for my food and whether or not it's good for me. I think I ended up making like some tamarind burgers or something, which it turned out really good. I remember being in the grocery store and I'm thinking like, this tomato that's organic and this regular tomato, two different prices, but they look the same. And like, what does that mean? You know? And it already started the conversation to me of what it means for like people that have to maybe feed 7 people as opposed to 3, like what it means to really eat good food, you know, and have access to that. So I'm really grateful for that project so early on in life because it taught me what it means to like put for a family in a way that works for everybody and that is genuinely nourishing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing about those
Yeah.
experiences. I'm going to move us into the second set of questions. And so I'd love for you in your own words to define what are spiritual, physical, and emotional health tools.
To me, it's really mostly about the practices. Um, whenever I think about things like that, I think of what I do in the moments in which I need assistance. So when it comes to emotional tools, I think of meditation or I think of journaling as a practice because those are things that I'm able to do for myself with myself that provides me a space of release. And when it comes to things like physical tools, like if I'm feeling hurt, stretching or using massage tools or taking a hot bath, like all those practices that I've been shown throughout my life that have been, maybe I had second thoughts about whether or not they would work for me, but you don't know until you try. So I think really the practice of making the choice to do the thing, whether or not you know it's going to work for you, is really important. Yeah.
So it's almost like it's with intention that you do these things, right?
For
Because
sure. For
yeah,
sure. Yeah. I mean, I feel like doing the practice is only half the work actually, because if you're just mindlessly stretching, not only could you hurt yourself, but you're not actually giving it your intention and your all, and therefore it's not going to give you the full result.
absolutely. It's almost like too, I hear you say that. I think about even the bath, right? Everybody, I mean, for the most part, we bathe every day, yada, yada, yada. But when you are stressed and you need that hot Epsom salt or whatever you're gonna use, put
Hmm.
in there when you need that bath, and this is not like the 10-minute, let me get ready and get out of the house bath, but this is let me
Right.
soak, let me think, let me gain clarity bath. So just
Hmm.
helping people understand the difference between, okay, I'm gonna go take a bath as opposed to it's gonna be the bath as an experience to help
Yeah, for
my mind.
sure.
Yeah.
And I think actually a lot of the time too, I think we kind of walk around thinking like things are separate, but they're really not. Like that's how you create a holistic person. Like if there's something that brings you joy, if jazz brings you joy in the car, it's going to bring you joy when you take a bath, right? And
Mhm.
that added effect is what's going to allow you to really create the experience that's genuinely nourishing for you after the fact. And I really would like to be able to bring that to people in the sense that it doesn't have to be that you like CBD outside of the bath, but you can't use it in the bath. Those are all things that are able to really contribute to your healing.
I love that, Amina. That's awesome. So, how did you become passionate about learning and developing healthy tools?
Um, to be real, I feel like I've always had it in me. And I think it wasn't really until I right about moved from New York back to California the second time. That was right around the time that I started my veganism journey and I started to understand how food is treated in this country. And I realized that living here in New York, there are so many people that walk around kind of like zombies. Um, and it's really a result of environment. And I know that sometimes people aren't always their environment, but a lot of the time they are. You wake up into the environment, that's what you see, it's what you experience, you breathe, you hear, and so that's what you become eventually. And I didn't want that for myself, and I didn't want that for my people. And on top of that, I knew that there were other people in the city like me who were actively working against that. um, and so once I came back to California, I actually was just really looking for the reason why I even came back to begin with was because I was looking for space to breathe and collect my thoughts. And once I got here, I actually ended up very soon after working at the African American Art and Culture Complex, which was such a blessing because it made me then even realize that there was their own well-being, cared about creativity and expression. And then about a couple months after that, I was accepted to the PhD or apprenticeship. So our farm actually in California to anybody that if they need a type of herbal and Maya's a wonderful wisdom woman. And being in that course showed me really like pulled the blinders off of my eyes, if you will. Like there are things that we live and breathe see every day that are actually 100% for us. And the only reason we don't do that is because it's not like
Oh, shoot.
really just saying that being in that herbal apprenticeship really pulled the blinders off of my eyes because I was able to see that there's things that we literally live in every single day that are here for us, which some people think is narcissistic to say, but like we are humans, which are of the earth. I'm really glad that it's because we are not per se fed, but how like left we go as a society in terms of like what's important. And then when you start to go right, you start to understand that it could be really simple actually. And so I mean, going back to New York, you know, I realize now that those things that I was learning in that herbalism was the fact that everything that we really need is around us. And not only that, the earth provides it for us. And I want people to be able to have access to the things they think they don't deserve or that they can't have access to. So that's really why I do it.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Aminah, for sharing that. So we've had some technical difficulties, but we have fixed those. So please continue to listen as we move into our third set of questions. And so, in your opinion, Aminah, why is it important to practice spiritual, physical, and mental health tools, especially for IPOC and folks of color?
I really, really, truly understand that we are whole human beings. If one thing is off, everything is off. And we are very powerful human beings. And so the power that is within somebody that is balanced and that is whole is like no other. And it's our right, like it's our birthright. I think that there are so many tools from our own individual lineages and also that we have as a collective that we have access to, that we deserve to be focused and healed and whole. I think that when we come together as a community to provide those things, there's literally nothing that can stop us. So I'm a firm believer, you know, that in trading with people, you know, investing in your community, um, sharing these practices with other people, doing yoga together, you know, providing homegrown foods to each other, things like that really allow us to see that we have other people that look like us, that care about us, that are willing to do the work the way that we're willing to do the work for us to have the life. They don't want us to be great, Rika.
That's all right. We give the tidbits. They got to go do their research and everything that you're talking about, so it'll help them.
Sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I will always encourage that though, because like research is your strongest tool and applied knowledge is even stronger than that, you know? Like I really am one that will look up everything and anything. Some people are probably think it's crazy, but what you do with that is up to you. And I always been applying. So
thank you too. Dropping nuggets on here. Okay, so how can healthy tools help us solve some of our community challenges?
to be very honest with you, I think there would be very little need for any intervention at that moment. I am very adamant about growing my own food. It's something that I really love. I also know that it's one of our biggest tools of power in this world because when we have food, nobody can tell us what to do. When I get to the space in which it's that I need to feed me and my family, I'm able to with others. That I eat, my neighbors eat. If my neighbors are then their neighbors eat, and so on and so forth. If I find a new practice, like I'm seriously the one friend that's like, yo, did you know that if you stretch this one leg, like your whole back problem will go away? Like I'm adamant on sharing what it is that I learned for myself because, you know, we all deserve to win. And I think that when we are able to be in that space together, there's so many things that one person can do, but there's a lot that we can all do for each other.
I love that.
Yeah. I
Deserve.
think it would allow us to bridge so many gaps that exist currently. And I, especially coming from the East Coast where people are so big on taking care of themselves, like people very is California's turned me soft in that sense because I say hi to people all the time and they look at me like I'm an alien. But these are the things that we've been trained to do in order to keep us as a part of the machine, you know? And I think that when we break away from those things and we're able to see, like, oh, our neighbors need sugar, like that's not just a saying. If your neighbors need sugar and you have a surplus of sugar, lend them the sugar, or probably better off honey, you know, because white sugar is not so great for you. But it's really about recognizing other people within yourself and seeing where what they have in lacking you may have, or vice versa, because it's okay to ask for help and it's okay to acknowledge that you may need something from somebody else. Closed mouths don't get fed, you know. And I think that when we're able to really step aside from the pride and see that like we are worth a healthy living and ask for the things that we need, so many doors open to what could be possible for us.
I love that, Aminah. And so what that makes me, as I'm listening to you, I'm just really thinking about that village, right? The village that we all, that indigenous populations really, that's how they were able to thrive, because of the village concept. And so when
Right,
I hear you, I'm thinking about, that's why it's important for us to, one, heal from our trauma, so that then we can tap into that purpose. Once we tap
right,
into our purpose, then I bring my purpose to the table, you bring your purpose to the table,
right,
and all the rest of the community members are bringing theirs to the table. And that's how the
exactly.
community becomes whole, because now everyone's doing the part that they were created to do,
Right,
thing that
right,
they're
right, right.
passionate about. So, oh God, you just sent chills up my spine.
I mean, yeah, we all have our talents and our purpose, and when we kind of all put together, like we're a puzzle piece to a puzzle.
Yeah,
Everybody's got to find their spot, you know.
yep, yep. Instead of trying to put pieces in
Yeah,
places they don't fit. And that's what happens when we're
exactly.
like, first we're put in a box when we go to school. Sit down,
Right,
put your hand, and it just kind of dims that creativity, that innovation that kids come to schools with. So it's important for them to have spaces to cultivate that. So I definitely,
exactly.
I'm glad that you lifted that up. So the final question in the third set is just, how do you think we can normalize these tools and practices in our communities? Especially, we're up against so much in 21st century, with this disease, with vaccination versus unvax and all of that. But just thinking about
Yeah.
these tools, how can we normalize those for our communities?
To be really honest with you, it seems to me like, wow, these mosquitoes are no joke out here. It seems to me more like it has to be a word to mouth conversation. You have to start small first, right? I am very aware that we live in a very large world, and a lot of the time we have to, you know, kind of adhere to certain things, and there's rules and all that stuff, right? And at the end of the day, you have a mother, or you know, you have folks around you, and they're the ones to start with. And I'm always an advocate that those around me get what they need before I start serving others, but also me myself first. um when you start to live the life it is that you say that you lead, you know, others ultimately follow, because not everybody's going to want to necessarily listen to the words. I mean, I feel like half the time you could put a tea blend in front of somebody and they still won't even drink it, right? But if you yourself are doing, like, rather not even you, I'm really going to speak on my own experience. When I take it on for myself and I decide, yes, I'm going to practice this herbal medicine, and I start to share my experience with people, it changes their whole perspective about what's possible, because they're starting to see that it works for me. And
Mhm.
that's usually how people end up with their own conclusions, anyways. Oh, well, if Aminah drank hibiscus for her cramps and it helped, then maybe I can drink hibiscus for my cramps and it'll help. And it really can be as simple as that. Part of the reason why we've been studying earthship biotexture has been because of the fact that at first people people get kind of like skeptical about the fact that, you know, you're technically building a home that's 45% upcycled with garbage. People are like, what? That's not how you build a home. But when you really get into the dynamics of building that home, it's perfectly and 100% sustainable. You start to tell people these things and they're like, oh my gosh, imagine never having to pay a water bill, or having to pay a light bill or an electricity bill, or never having to, you know, like do all of these things for a home that's not technically yours. These are the things that we share just by having a conversation with somebody and giving them the resources and sending them the links, sending them the books, explaining things, breaking it down in a couple of different ways so that it lands for everybody is really how it helps transfer this information and this knowledge. And I know that sometimes it's like it's not so easy for different people to have those conversations because, I mean, ego is ego and we're human beings. And sometimes when somebody doesn't listen, it's really hard. But that's always why I just falter on leading by example, because that will never falter. And if I'm doing it for myself, I can help somebody else do it for themselves, really.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm going to move us into the final set of questions. Okay. And I would love to start just with you telling us a little bit about what you've been doing to help others.
For sure. So, wow, where do I start? At the moment here in New York, we have been working on putting together our first workshop called Semillas, which is seeds in Spanish. And it will particularly be about a 2-month workshop that will help folks grow their own food wherever they are, particularly in urban setting, using really whatever they have at their disposal. If they choose to go out and buy the seeds or buy the containers, that's fine, because some people have that income at their disposal. However, there's also an opportunity to upcycle things, water bottles and cans and things like that, and giving them access to a way in which they can create their own food source here in the city in their homes, because we are currently staying in Throgs Neck, Bronx. And it's been really hard. It's been really hard to find food that we can genuinely nourish ourselves with. And if it's hard for us, we know for a fact it's hard for other people. And so that's one of the initiatives. And then on top of that, actually, part of the reason why we are doing Earthship Biotextures so that we can help others build their homes. So while we've been doing this class, we've been sharing different methods of sustainability with folks, so that they can basically kind of get a routine going for themselves to contribute to bringing this earth back to the way it is. So there's so many things, Rika, actually, now that I think about it. We've been holding sound meditations because sound meditation is something that has really been beneficial for us, especially in a city that's so loud. And it's one of the greatest ways that we could possibly ground ourselves in a city with not so much green. So holding sound meditations for folks has been really, really beneficial for us. And then also cooking for folks, like I said, in my family, we're cooking people. Like, that's just how we express our love, so a lot of the times we'll just feed folks that we know can't be fed, or feed folks that are having a bad day. And so really what it is that we aim to do with Divine Root in particular is to continue doing this work in the hopes that people will not only listen, but start to do it for themselves. We currently also have consultancy services, which allows us to help folks basically get their own gardens together. So wherever they are in the States, we'll consult with you and help you figure out what kind of soil you have access to, what kind of seeds you would like to grow, methods of keeping your water purified, keeping your water filtered rather, as opposed to purified. And kind of helping folks around the States get their own source of food, because small farming is essentially going to be our future, considering that, large monocropping is kind of part of the reason as to why our environment is starting to become depleted. So we've been offering that service to folks to help them get their own food supplies going. And we actually also soon are going to be releasing our fire cider, which is something that we've been really meditating on, because we know that fall is coming and we know that flu season is coming, and just been sharing the knowledge of like the things that you have around you that will help boost your immunity, help you stay grounded, help it stay fortified, because stress and worry and fear and all those things definitely deplete the immunity. And so that's something that we've been trying to just, even word of mouth, live how you are, let people know, like, you can't be worried or afraid, because that literally will contribute to your disease. So yeah,
and I know that's just a tip of it, because Aminah, I know you have your hands you have your green thumbs in a lot of different plants and
for
pots.
sure.
So I love to hear about that. One thing I did want you to share, and you can do this when you after I some of the pearls I heard you say, but could share the workshop information that you have coming up around building your own gardens in urban settings, because I would love for the viewers who want to participate in that. I want to participate in that. And also where we could get organic seeds, because I know I've been in a couple clubhouse rooms where they've been talking about growing your own gardens, but some questions came up around buying seeds from certain places. Can you
For
trust
sure.
yada, yada, yada. So I would love to participate in that. But I would just really quickly like to just highlight a couple of the pearls. I heard you say a lot. I'm probably going to have to go back and watch on my own just to make critical sense of this on my own. But I like that idea around creating an experience that incorporates the spiritual, physical, and emotional tools to improve your mood and situation. Like when you talked about the bath and you talked about
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be separate. I have to sit in this room and listen to jazz, but I could actually put the jazz on, run a bath, and do some other, like incorporate three different tools. So it creates this experience. So when I'm done, I'm coming out of this on this high that I can carry
Yeah.
throughout my day. I really like that. I also like when you talked about us being whole beings, and if one thing is off, everything is off. And so how do we, it's important for us to maintain that our balance, our power balance, right? I
Yes.
talk about this a lot around just the humanity. That's what we're seeing in our world. It's off kilter. It's been off kilter. And when you rape and rob the land the way that it has been done, there's, I mean, what I'm seeing, I'm not shocked by. This is what happens when you do these
Yeah.
things. And so it's important for us to try to at least do our part to bring harmony back to humanity. I also heard you talk about us deserving the right to be healthy and whole. And when I think about living in urban centers and food deserts and environmental racism that happens, especially for our Black and Brown communities when they are near toxic sites and dump sites and all of these things,
Yeah.
we deserve to be healthy and whole. I think that is definitely something I want to do more advocacy around for all of our communities. And then one last one I'll lift up and then I'll kick it back to you is just researching is your strongest tool, and applied knowledge even more, like especially right now with everything in the vaccine. A lot of conversations I've been having, people who maybe for the vaccine, they're like, I did my research, I was on CDC, and I'm like, research is more, you can't just trust one, it's not just one site, it's not one source, it's many sources, it's conversations, it's talking with those in the field, it's actually, like I'll tell people, we're walking data. You can look at our history and see the data that has been passed down in our DNA from our ancestors on what has been done to our communities. And so I think you talking about that was really important. Not just taking what people say and run with it and, oh, I'm going to live by this because so and so said it, actually researching it and then applying that and making critical sense with what you've already gone through and kind of where you are in life now. So I just want to thank you, Aminah, for lifting up so much. And I want to give you the opportunity to just share one last tip, piece of advice, or just something that you want the viewers to walk away with. And again, thank you for coming on and sharing your knowledge and your story. And it's always amazing to be able to converse with you.
Thank you so much, Rika. Yeah, man. Oh, such a good conversation. I could go on for hours about this stuff, to be honest with you. Regarding our workshop, we are aiming for the beginning of September. We have a team put together to help us finalize the whole workshop and everything. And we will be doing pre-order tickets, which will include seeds that we actually handpick ourselves and then send out to folks so that they can get started on those things. But the whole workshop will essentially be from seed to sprout. So what kind of seeds to look for, how to save them, how to create your soil mixture, how to create your, your water and things like that. And then basically where you are based on what you have access to, how to sprout them and actually have it work for you. So if anybody would like to keep an eye out for that, you can get us on Instagram at Divine Root TV. That's DIVINEROOTTV. And in terms of getting your seeds, I believe there's actually a Japanese seed company in the Bay called Kitazawa Seeds that has really wonderful organic seeds that work really well with the zone that we live in or that you live in, which I believe is 10B. And so that's definitely something that you always want to keep in mind, because not every seed works for every zone. And one final tip, y'all, eat your ginger. Eat your ginger, take a ginger shot, raw ginger, organic ginger, because that alone is one of the things that I swear by, because it cleans you out, it keeps your body on point, it gives your mind clarity, it clears out your lungs, it releases mucus, and it gets me going for the day. So if there's anything that I would say, is make sure you start your day off with something that will keep you clean and clear for sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Rika. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.